I know he's got his hands full.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, you want to do this?
Sure. In compliance with the Open Publics Meeting Act, this is a special meeting which was published in the July 22nd, 2021 issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, filed in the Township Clerk's office, and posted on the Bulletin Board and Township website. Tamara Lee,
Yes.
Mike Mills,
Present.
Marnie Stetson, Tim Willie is absent, Angela Louisa,
Here.
and Greg Chiacchio.
Here.
And Yolanta Maziarz.
Here.
All right. Okay. All right, so we've got a lot to do if we're going to get it all done. But the objective is to figure out how we're going to run these outreach meetings that are going to predominantly focus on, the farm project and the ABAD zone, and how we're going to sort of, what kind of policies we're going to have to incorporate that into the master plan. So I'd like to do a couple of things if we can. One is finalize who we're going to invite to these outreach meetings, talk about the various groups that we're going to meet with, because when you meet with people who have common interests, you can sort of flush out the issues a little more easily than if you just open it up to the public. We're going to have plenty of open to the public meetings, but different farmers or even residents who live around farms but they aren't farmers, their interests are going to be different than than other people. So we need to go over that, and then I'd like to go over the questions that we're going to ask when we hold these meetings, so that we all agree, we're all working from the same list. And then the idea is 2 of us would attend each meeting. It can be done with one person. I've certainly done outreach meetings by myself, but it's not as easy. It's nice to have one person taking notes and one person sort of leading the discussion. When it's just me, I get one of those big easel pads that's really like a supersized Post-it note pad, and I actually take notes on that as I'm holding the discussion, and then you peel it off and you stick it to the wall. And there's actually benefits to that, and you might want to do that just because it people stay engaged because they're looking at the notes that are up on the wall. But we can talk about how we're going to run those meetings later. The main thing is let's get the invitees list sort of finalized, and let's get the list of questions finalized so that we're all starting in the same place. So in order to create the invitee list, and I sent you a copy of that, I started with this inventory. This is an inventory of everyone who's filed for farmland assessment. This is one of the good things that came out of the pandemic, because I'm going to get 100% of the credit goes to Mary Ann Bouchard, because this is what she was doing while we were on lockdown. So she went through all the farmland assessment forms and created this database for us. I then went through it, and there are some that we can just cross off right from the start. So for instance, the Thompson land property, sometimes known as Princeton Research, those guys are just land investors, they're not farmers.
So what is it, just large tracts of open space?
They have large pieces of land, and I'm sure they have leases with farmers so they can get the tax benefit and all that, but they don't have any investment in the future of farming. So I don't think we need to meet with people, with those people. There are a lot of these farms that are actually, they have farmland assessment because they've got a woodland management plan. So a lot of these, actually this is a map. Like I said, Mike put this together. Of all the properties on here are on this map. Okay, so a lot of these you can see are in the mountain, and they've got woodland management. So we don't have to necessarily meet with those people because those aren't working farms like we're talking about.
So blue is residential and green is farm?
Blue is, well, yeah,
Just
blue is
not
not farmland
Not-
assessed.
So it's either residential or business?
Right, probably, yeah. So a couple of others that I didn't, include were, for instance, there may be a piece of property that might be 10 or 15 acres and they have 2 horses. you know, my guess is they're not really farming, you know, if all they have is 2 horses, those are probably pet horses. So those probably aren't true farmers. I could be wrong. But I went through, and you can see I've sort of circled things. Well, let me tell you what's on here. You've got lot and block, you've got the address of the farm, who owns it, then you've got the farm owner, and their contact information, the farmer and their contact information. And then from here on, this is just everything that they might be dealing with. So there's, you know, there's crops, there's livestock, and then at the end here, these are horses, okay? So you see, you know, I didn't get too excited if you had 2 or 3 horses, but if you've got 25 horses, you're probably a horse farmer, you know? If you've got 19,000 chickens, yeah, you're probably somebody we should talk to, you know, that sort of thing. So I went through and made a first pass at it. Mike, you helped me when I was trying to quantify what's a big farmer.
Yeah, so.
So what were your thoughts about that?
According to, like, the USDA, they say any farm that makes less than $250,000 a year is a small farm. So I would say most farms in the town probably are considered true small farms. But
Right.
when I think of a large farm, I'm thinking of large acreage, single crops, maybe 3 crops a year.
Mhm.
They have multiple parcels sometimes. So there's really no classification. But if we're gonna wanna break that up, that's probably, you know,
That's sort of the local breaking point.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would say. I mean,
yeah.
they might say they're not very big, but
Right.
to, like, compared to me, they're gigantic, so.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the kind of thing we have to talk about.
Mhm.
So for instance, I'm suggesting here, one group that we should meet with are landowners who work with farmers, as opposed to landowners who themselves are the farmers, okay? Again, I think the interests might be different. So I've identified group number 1 on page 1 of this invitee list is, you know, some landowners who work with farmers. You can see some of them, I wasn't sure whether they should be in this group or another. So some have horses, maybe they should just be in another group, which is the horse farming group. Some, you know, the Hockenberries, the Kanaks, Mirabitos, they have other people farming their property, but I know they're also farmers, so maybe they shouldn't be in this list. That's a question for this group.
So what does that mean? They have people farming part of it, and they farm part of it also?
Well, I think the Hockenberries, they're older, so I don't know how much farming they're doing right now.
So, like, you mean they used to be farmers?
Yeah. I don't know the Kanaks. Mirabitos, I know they do some farming, and actually this is their son.
Oh,
This
okay.
is her son who's doing it, so it may be more appropriate to put them in the other, in the other group, the farmer group. And then with respect to the farmers, the next group, landowners who themselves are farmers, frankly, I didn't know how we wanted to classify them, small, medium, and large. I mean, for instance, I was talking with one farmer, she's got 10 acres, she's got some stables with horses, and she has some chickens, and she puts, literally all she has is a cooler out at the end of her driveway. That's really small. You know, is that a different class than, you know, somebody who's got, you know, 18 sheep or, you know, 6 cows or something? This is the kind of stuff we need to talk about. But what I'd like to do is, and then I don't even know if I have all the right names here. That's why I brought this list. I think we need to look at this list and, you know, you guys give me your thoughts, and we can mark it up. I have no problem with that. But these are the groups that I thought we would initially talk to. As I said, landowners who work with farmers, landowners who themselves are farmers, and I suggested small, medium, and large. Maybe we just have small and large, I don't know. You guys gotta tell me what you think. And then the last group on this list is the horse farmers. You know, that's a little easier to pick out. but I still had some questions here. One other group, which is not on this list, because I haven't generated it yet, is we've talked about, as I said, meeting with people who are not farmers but who live around farms, because they have different concerns when it comes to farms. That's when this map is gonna come in handy, and we got a little bit more research to do. Just looking at all of the non-farm lots, cross-checking that with the tax information to find out who the people are, and then trying to get a representative sample of people that we can invite who would be interested in talking to us about their thoughts about what it's like living near a farm. So we can have an outreach meeting with them. And then finally, I wanted to ask you guys if you want to meet with any other groups, like, do we want to meet with businesses separately? You know, do we want to meet with Ringo's residents separately? Do we want to bring them in? So I guess those are sort of the questions related to the invitees. And then I had generated some sample questions for each of these groups that I'd like to go over. It's a lot of information to do in one night.
Tam, for the invitees, did you just look for representative people, or were you trying to find like every landowner who works with farmers that had, you know, more than a negligible?
Yeah, I went through basically this part of the inventory, and I was looking for the bigger numbers.
Of acreage?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, not necessarily acreage, actually this tells you product. So, you know, 350 chickens and,
Got it.
15 sheep. And that's what all those yellow and red marks are. So I went through and highlighted all of the larger numbers. And, then some of them I later crossed out. For instance, this one, if you follow it over there, it's a trustee. So
And what does that mean?
that usually means somebody has died, and it's now, a trustee is
So-
managing it.
I'm asking this because, like, near me, there's a big hay farm.
Mm-hmm.
It says trustee, but they're not dead, and they're not on the list. So
Okay.
I'm just wondering,
Then that's what we have to refine this list.
okay,
We absolutely have to refine
I
this.
know, for example, my neighbor Buxton, it's under a trustee,
Right.
still lives here with his wife,
and that's
and he
actually,
farms it.
yeah,
But he might have inherited it, or they might have just put it into a
into a
trust.
trust.
Into a trust.
Okay.
So, typically.
I'm just thinking about it because it's a
inherited money,
big,
Yeah.
it's a big acreage.
but- Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's why we're meeting, so that we can refine the list. And, if we have to add people, let's add people. If you think we should, move people from one group to another, then we should do that.
Well, and also maybe it doesn't matter if we have, significant representation
That's true.
for all the
Right,
groups.
right,
It's not like you have to hear every single landowner who works with farmers.
right.
I was just curious what the,
Yeah. No, I'm the one who came up with the initial sort of parameters, but I don't know if they're right. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. The other thought I had is if we don't exactly know whether a farm is large or small, maybe we ask them, how do they classify themselves? Maybe that's a better way to do
right,
it.
So on our assessment, we have, how much income is produced from the
Mhm.
farm,
Mhm.
and that's not on this, obviously.
Right.
We have that data, we'd have to go back, but that's probably a good indicator of a small and large farm, how much money they're making.
Yeah.
'Cause, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't think people wanna disclose that necessarily.
yeah.
It is public information, you can request it from the
Right.
town if you really wanted to, for an
Right.
Oprah request or whatever.
Yeah.
But that is probably a good indicator if you're actually farming or not.
Yeah.
And that's
And-
kind of the purpose, we're trying to see if farming is economically viable, so
Right.
I think that's kind of an important.
Yeah, and we talked about that at the beginning, and we deliberately left that off of here. We knew it was public information, but we deliberately left it off because we thought it was too personal. I see your point.
Yeah,
I still feel like if there's a way to do it without that information, I'd
Well-
like to do it.
is there, and I know this wouldn't be in all cases, but in many cases, at least for big farmers, wouldn't acreage be a proxy for income? I mean, not for your kind of farm, but for like a hay farmer or a corn farmer or a cow farmer even.
they'd like to believe that too, but there's always weather, there's always equipment issues, there's always something that
Right.
impact that, but yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, and if we're thinking about what we wanna preserve, big acreages are definitely something we wanna preserve, so maybe that could be a proxy for income. I can see income being really sticky.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
Yeah.
why we left it, that's what we agreed to leave it at.
right. If we do it by acreage, it's gonna be a little tedious because you'll see that people are
Have
listed
more than-
several
yeah.
different times.
Yeah,
So you have to start adding
yeah, and maybe that's just more
it up.
Is,
than we need.
this is one big Excel file someplace?
Yes,
Is it available to us?
yeah, I can send it to
Because,
you.
okay, because that's what I used to do at work, was crunch
So-
Excels.
Great,
So, you know,
Sort it.
setting it, you know, adding it up by all the names that match, you know, whatever works out to be key, you know, apparently the landowner looks like one of the keys. And then take all the little plots, add them up. Okay, or,
Filters and.
yeah, apply filters, whatever. There was something else about, you had the landowner and then you had one who actually farms it.
right.
It would be a match, right? It'd be here and here, or not necessarily.
Well, I haven't seen this yet, I was looking at this, but like, you have landowner who
Mhm.
works with the farmers, okay, so the Rosenborgs, and they work with this Mark Bodine person,
Right.
okay, so they may have lots of plots
Mm-hmm.
and work with different farmers, so that would have to be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And same, you know, conversely, Mark Bodine may work with different landowners.
Absolutely.
Right.
And what about things outside of our jurisdiction? Because, I mean, it's possible that this Mark Bodine person works in Hillsborough as well. Do we care? Should we care? Can we care?
Right, right. Well, I mean, I think,
At least for starters, let's stop with scope creep.
well, I wasn't assuming we were going to meet with farmers who did not own land in East Amwell. So,
Okay.
group number 2 are the farmers who own land in East Amwell,
All right,
okay? Group number 1, yes, we have farmers listed here, but they are hired by the people in the first column, who are the landowners. Or they lease from them.
all right.
Is another possibility to, you know, come up with this list and make whatever modifications that are sort of immediate to us?
Mm-hmm.
And then also somehow say we're doing outreach to a wide cross-section of people. If you're interested in, you know, giving us your input, self-identify which group you're in,
Right.
and we'll invite you.
Absolutely.
So that anybody that wants to be heard could be heard, but we don't have to spend excruciating amounts of time, you know, making sure we have identified every single person.
Oh, I agree with you. We shouldn't have to identify every single person. I think a representative sample is good, and yes, I do think if we can come up with the parameters for each group, we should publicize that. I haven't had a lot of luck.
I know, I know.
Farmers are busy and, you know, the winter is short.
Yeah, no, I know.
So I find, you know, reaching out to them is more effective if we can do that.
Definitely.
But, yeah, I mean, Angelo, if you can help us refine this, I mean, if you can do that, then we just need to come up with the
Criteria.
parameters to filter this by. So can we give Angelo, anybody have any thoughts about
Like how to define each of these
how to define
categories.
each of these
Yeah.
groups, yeah?
Well, one thing, the USDA just has small and large farms, they don't even have a medium class.
Okay,
So that might be an easy way just to say, if you're less than X acres, you're small, and
Yeah.
if you're greater than X acres, you're large, just to, you know, break it up at least.
It could be the size of the farm and then the number of animals, or, I mean, the size of the farm would do ones that, you know, they grow hay, they grow grapes.
Like, kind of create like a weight and rate
Bees.
classification,
Right,
rate everything, give it a weight, and
yeah, and then it just, you know, puts it through, so the number of acres counts for this weight, you know, so many units per acre, and then so many units per animal. Maybe chickens are less because they're little, and horses and cows are bigger.
well, I think horses will be separate, completely
Okay.
separate, because you know more about horses than I do, but I think
Yeah,
it's a
and
whole
we could
separate
just do a
group.
number, I
Yeah.
think, for those.
Okay,
I think that one's easy to.
And it says on here what they do.
yeah, this
Okay.
is,
Well, if I have any questions, I'll
Yeah.
reach out.
yeah, food crop, livestock, feed crop. I think
Right.
that's- what else
Yeah, there's feed crop, food crop, then we've got chicken,
We
well,
didn't include ornamental crop?
yeah, we do.
Oh, there is, okay.
Yeah,
Ornamental
oh, that's
crops
right
and
before-
Christmas trees,
Yeah.
Oh, that's with Christmas trees, I see that.
yeah. Chickens, and then for some reason, they separate, I guess the forms separate out pheasants and ducks, and then
Well, we can
llamas and
combine those
sheep
things,
and beef.
you know, we can,
Fowl.
Yeah.
we can combine
Say-
groups
say
of
poultry.
animals too. you know,
Right.
For all those
Poultry,
things.
Or,
Poultry,
you know,
chickens,
llamas and alpacas could be, you know, I mean, I don't know what to use the llamas for, but alpacas, they make, wool out of.
Yeah, yeah, that's all one group, llamas and alpacas.
Okay, I guess that's because alpacas look like little llamas.
Okay, so the size of the farm would be weighted heaviest? Is that what we're suggesting? And then,
Well, we can come up with some arbitrary weights up front,
mhm,
see how it pans out, and then I'll set it up that they can be easily changed.
okay,
So if you don't like it, you know, but it's more over the category, so the size, which is acreage,
mhm,
then the animals,
Animal units.
and then we would, you know, do you wanna break, bird-type animals into one thing, fowl?
I don't think we need to do that, I really think we just need to separate horses from other animals.
Well, I was thinking like, you know, chickens, you know, if they have 100 chickens, that's not the same as having 15 cows.
Right,
Right.
oh,
Okay.
so you gotta break all
Sure,
that
yeah.
out.
So I was thinking chickens are littler,
Uh-huh,
Small animal, large animal. we could
small
say.
animal, large animal, you know, that sort of thing.
mhm,
Okay,
Okay.
so, small animals. Large animals. Then you have other things, you have, what was it, ornamental and Christmas trees, what was your, OCXT.
yeah,
And would acreage take that into account or no?
Well, that's just another thing to apply a weight to.
Oh, I see, because you have this
Okay.
acres, how.
Because, you know, say a farm has, you know, 10,000 acres, and they do OCXT on it, all right? So they would have a certain weight because they have 10,000
Got it.
acres.
Yeah.
Then they have a certain weight because they're doing OCXT.
Right.
But if somebody else has 10,000 acres and does large animals, they would still have the same weight from the 10,000 acres, but they might get more weight because of the large animals.
mhm,
Now, this is the kind of stuff I'll need help with, because to me, you know, I've been living here for 14 years,
mhm,
okay, and I like living here, and the only thing I really learned about farms is I can tell the wind direction by what it smells like.
yeah, yeah,
Just so you understand, when there's livestock, those are counts usually, and when there's crop, it's an acreage,
Okay,
right? That's how that's broken.
yes.
So
it
there's counts
says
for animals and then acreage for the type of land
Yeah.
use.
So OCXT would be an acreage.
Yeah,
right, and if they're growing hay or other plants, it's an acreage, but again,
Right.
that's how it's weighted. I'm assuming that they don't plant the entire farm
Right.
with the crops. Okay, all that stuff will be built in, we can work that in.
Okay. And where are bees gonna, we have a whole separate section for bees,
Well, we can make bees another weight.
another way?
It could be, do we know bee hives? Because I think that what would count.
Yeah, it
The number of
says,
bee
colonies.
hives.
it says, in acres, bees equal hives,
Okay,
so,
So if it's five.
So
it
it's
would
a
make
five, I assume it's
little
5
boxes.
hives.
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, you know, get a million bees in a hive,
got a high weight right there.
okay, and then bees.
I see, this must be acres per hive.
So that's a calculation, that's
That's
a
a
calculation. So some of the
calculation.
fields might be derived from the calculation. So this one says it's,
Well, if you send me the spreadsheet, I mean, I'll see the formula.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's
Right,
true.
right. Okay. All right. And then, so then we'll get this weighted number, and we'll decide where the cutoff is, everything.
We'll combine them based on landowner. Okay, so all the ones owned by Kuntz, say,
Mhm.
all right, I don't know, they have more than one thing, but they would all be combined into one thing. and then the coons would get a specific weight. And that
Even
would
though
be,
they have more than one.
that would be the
farm.
combination of their acreage, their bees, their cows, their
Oh, that's perfect.
llamas and whatever.
You could see it like in a summary and then individualized, or no? So could you see it if that
I can
person?
do whatever you want.
Typically, it would be good to have a summary. Yeah, 'cause when you do a report, you know,
Yeah.
you would do this,
Do whatever
the
you want.
totals, and then you couldn't see you could drill in.
I'm not gonna do
That'd
an
be
app
great.
on the phone though, that's for kids.
That's great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, well, that,
So one thing this doesn't have is the qualifying code for the parcel, but I can redo those, unless we just didn't include it.
What does it mean?
So so in New Jersey, the parcels have a parcel ID,
Okay.
and it's block, the lot, qualification code, all in one pin to
I've seen
make
that
it
on my tax
unique.
bill, I have no idea what it means.
Yeah, qualification code. So typically a farm has a qualification code, and they're not similar to all farms, but you'll see there's a Q, it's usually the parcel number, and then there's some random numbers. And
Yeah.
I don't know how they come up with them. I think they might just write them, honestly. Some of them they do make sense, but a lot of them don't.
I mean.
is this not the qualification?
This is the qualification code so this is typically for a block that has, or a lot that has a farm and then the non-farm land. So there's like, the residential exclusion doesn't usually have a qual code, but then the farmed acreage does. Sometimes, if it's grandfathered, it's all just one with a qual code, and there's just residents.
Okay.
So it's really how they did it at the time, and there's variations throughout the state, and even within a municipality, there's variations, because they changed it.
Do we care about it?
Well, I want the parcel pin, just so I can link it back to the map, so we can take this information, you give me
Oh,
a
yeah, no,
summary,
I'm not gonna-
and I'll be able to say, here are this person's farms, and we'd be able to see all of them just in a quick.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm envisioning is basically in essence, resorted by landowner. Okay, so all the names come together. Okay, and then for the names that are the same, build some sort of summary row. You'd still have all the individual data, the entire row
Mhm.
would still be available. And then I don't know if they're all the same, I don't know what these Q codes mean outside of, they seem to be just numbers they chose.
It's basically qualified for tax assessment,
Okay,
so qualified, and then those numbers don't really, if
yeah,
you see a Q, it means it's qualified.
right. Where's mine? I'm not on this list.
Like mine's 0212.
I don't have a
and
farm,
don't-
I guess. I only
I
have
don't
4.5
know.
acres.
Okay.
It's by my neighbor's yard.
Mhm.
All right, so I guess we would need to see this before we can figure out where the dividing line is. I like the idea of just having small and medium.
Small and
Small
large.
and
Small and large, right? Small and large. That makes sense. What do you think, Greg?
I'm learning as
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Okay.
You're gonna, filter it first and you can figure it out.
Right, right.
In the future, you could go micro, that's like, less than most of the farms, this is not really kind of farm. But that's the new term, micro farm.
Right. Now, do we want to separate out landowners who work with farmers and landowners who themselves are farmers? We still want to separate, I think we still need to separate.
Well, I think we need to talk to both people, the landowner and the farmer.
Well, I think we need to do it separately.
Well, yeah, not together.
Well, the thing about the farmer is not all these farmers are residents.
Well, we'd only care about resident farmers.
Well, right,
So that's.
Farmers,
Right, but that-
farmers are East Amwell residents, not
Right.
necessarily living on the farm,
right, not necessarily living on the farm.
right? Because if, I don't know if it exists or not, but say, you said Princeton something or other owns lots and lots of acres
Mm-hmm.
and farms it out,
Mhm.
or leases it to farmers.
Right.
Those people could live in Ringgoes,
Mm-hmm.
okay, although they work the farm that's out, someplace else, like where I live or something. So he could be working 1,000 acres, but he's got a house on Old York Road.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually happens or not.
Well, I know one farmer that farms and doesn't live on a farm and is a resident, so
Okay.
does,
Okay. All right.
but they will show up here as farmers.
As farmers, but not landowners. So people who are in the farmers list, but not on the landowner
Right.
list.
Yeah, because the
Okay.
property behind me is a farm, I think it's probably like 18, 20 acres, and nobody lives there. And periodically, some people in a truck show up and do work.
Farmers.
Wait a second, so we're talking about meeting with farmers who farm here.
And live here, but don't
Live here.
necessarily
But
live on a farm.
don't necessarily live on the farm,
Yeah.
nor own the land they farm.
Right. I just want to be careful we're not talking with farmers who farm here but don't live here.
Right.
Right, now, you have to either own property in East Amwell or live in East Amwell to be considered.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you can do that, that would be great.
I think I can, I don't know what, I haven't looked at all the data yet since I've just seen it,
Okay.
but yeah.
Well, the only, if it doesn't show residents on here, the only thing we would have to check is the list of farmers that don't live on farms in East Amwell, that they do live in East Amwell,
Mhm.
which probably is a small.
The farmer column that you have here, okay, landowners who work with farmers,
Mhm.
okay, on the Rosenborg line, wherever that is, would it show Mark Bodine's name someplace?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because we have one column here for landowner and another column here for the farmer.
All right, I can't see that far.
Yeah,
I can only see that.
yeah.
All right, that's what I'm looking for, so we can, so, once I'm gonna resort the whole thing, this is what I'm thinking, is I'm gonna resort it by landowner, and then the secondary key would be the farmer.
Mhm.
So if you have a landowner like the Princeton place, and they may deal with 6 different farmers, so you'd have Princeton with the first farmer, Princeton with the second farmer, down the list. So it won't be all mixed up,
Mhm.
it'll be organized
Mhm.
somewhat. And then we can figure out how we want to do the weights,
Right.
because in that case, if the leasee, the farmer, lives here,
Mhm.
okay, he doesn't get all the weight of all the property owned by Princeton, but he would get the weights based on the property he uses.
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't think we care if he leases it or how the deal between him and the landowner is, I don't think that matters,
Right.
at least in my mind it doesn't.
Mhm.
But we wanna weight the farmer, the actual farmers. And then the other thing to add into is, if the farmer has his own property as well as leases property, we have to combine that.
Oh, there are a lot of
Too.
farmers that do that.
Yeah, 'cause I assume whoever's farming behind my house probably has other properties in town,
Mhm.
and I don't even know who they are, but
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Let me just ask you a question.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Since it's such a small group,
Mhm.
how awful would it be if I invited Lindsay to come
Oh, no, it's not at all.
to? I can do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna ask you guys, I don't know if you wanna do this or not, but we got a really smart lady sitting back there who probably has a lot of information about what we're talking about. Personally, I wouldn't mind inviting her to the table.
I have no problem, I like smart people.
Lindsay, would you like to join us?
Sure.
You've heard our conversation.
Yeah.
You know the farmers better than, certainly better than most of us. Mike knows the farmers, but,
I don't really know the farmers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff being said is actually incorrect, so,
okay.
Okay,
yeah. it's
Could you help us out?
Yeah, I mean, with what I know,
Yeah,
so the Hockenberries still farm,
they do.
yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that I think is important, is there's farmers that live in Raritan Township that farm East Amwell property. So when we're talking about you having to own or live in East Amwell, I think it's important to hear from the farmers who farm the ground in the township.
Right, right. And that's what we were talking about, talking to landowners who live here and farmers who farm here but also live here.
and she just said farmers who farm here but do not live here.
Yeah.
But, oh, you want us to include them?
I don't know why they would get excluded.
Well,
They
if-
have a stake in the ground in this town through leases or contracts.
yeah, it's a matter of who pays taxes and
Who we represent.
who we represent. And, I mean, that might be a question for the full board. I mean, I think it's gonna take, it sounds like it's gonna take us a while to finalize this invitee list.
Well, and also the question is, would their interests be different from farmers that live here and farm here? Like, would they have some perspective that farmers that live here wouldn't
full pot of farmers is that big. I don't think we're talking about big numbers of people that you'd be cutting out by not including them, so I don't see the hurt in adding them. I just think that, you know, they might live right on the border of East Amwell, and, you know, farming viability in this town is equally important to them. Just because they don't own property and pay taxes here, they're still working the ground here, and they should have their say of what they do.
Not
You
so-
know,
I mean, actually Jared Weeks is one of
yeah,
those, right?
that's one of them. Jeff Boldy is one of them. There's a few.
Once we sort through the data, we can see how many there actually are.
Okay,
And I mean, if, I'm sorry, I forgot what your name was.
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Well, and maybe there's a rationale for, you know, getting expertise from people that are farmers.
Okay,
And, you know, maybe our duty is to the people that live here and pay taxes, but that doesn't mean we can't solicit knowledge of other people.
okay. I can buy that.
My concern is you won't be able to find that information in this. This just has a
That was
farmer's
gonna be
name.
my next question.
Yeah, you
The name.
there's no discernible information for that. I mean, I'd love to know how many farmers are from out of the city itself, so.
Well, do the forms actually have the addresses? We've got other contact information, but
Yeah,
I
the
fill it
assessment
out.
forms.
they've
Does
got
have
the,
the address of it? I forget what I
Mhm.
mean.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Got
if
3
you give
days.
us the names, we can find the addresses.
And honestly, looking at this list,
This was just a first
Yeah,
pass.
if it's just a handful, I'm sure
I
we
can
can
go
even
through
like
this whole
figure it
list and
out.
probably write every single farmer's name to this property.
Really?
Yeah,
That's, yeah, it's only that
I
many.
mean, the farmers know the farmers, and I'm married to one, so he could probably fill out this whole list. Instead of you guys trying to piece together your data.
Well, we need to have it based on something objective, which is why we're trying to,
Right, but there's
do
nothing
the
wrong
search through
with
this.
correlating
Yeah, with
Right.
their
Lindsay and her
local
husband's
knowledge,
list, local knowledge,
with
with
what you come up with.
the assessments, the assessment forms?
Farmland assessment, yeah.
Yeah, farmland assessment has the owner and then whoever farms the property.
Right.
With their address.
Right.
And they're all due August 1st, so you're gonna have a whole fresh wave of them that you could look into.
Mm-hmm.
Are they paper or electronic?
They're paper.
Paper,
Yeah, that's why this took, that's why this was done during the pandemic.
It should be on the computer by now, but then again, a lot of the farmers don't wanna use computers.
I don't blame them.
Neither does the state.
it's too easy to, you know, go through the data and find, well, that person doesn't really make X amount of money on that parcel.
Lindsay, I'm curious, what do you think about the groups that we identified? Landowners who use farmers, small and large farms, horse farmers.
I mean, I think it's all the groups, I think it's just gonna be difficult for the board to kind of classify people into small or large.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Cause
having
by
been-
acreage won't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah,
tell you that.
that's what we're discussing about, trying to figure out like a weight by the number of acres, the number of animals, the number of acres farmed, things like that. And then make some sort of line
Yeah,
between small and large. That would be pretty much arbitrary, the line where it is, but, you know,
But the rest had, there's rhyme or reason to the rest.
yeah, I mean, there's rhyme or reason to
Yeah.
how they got classified.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't even know how many we're gonna have. I mean, looking at this big long list, it looks like there's 100 or so rows.
Aren't there?
No,
No, there's a few
100.
hundred, yeah.
I think 290 something.
290.
Yeah.
That just came to my head, but
Yeah.
that's not exact.
Okay, but then once we correlate those things, it should be less.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we have it, you know, say we keep 2/3 of it, right? 290 breaks it down to 200. You know, that's a big group, but, you know,
So
still.
the implications of whether you're in our small farm group or our large farm group is not really very significant, because it's just a way to break up the groups. Like whoever we invite is gonna be representing their interests. So
Right.
if they're like on the border,
Right, but I assume my experience so far is that the interests for the smaller farmers is slightly different than the larger farmers.
but maybe if you're on the margin, you can self-identify.
Right, right. think self-identifying is probably a good idea.
If you have a specific list of questions that you're gonna ask all these groups,
Mhm.
would you even really need to classify the farmers as small or large? Because I think a lot of the questions that you have for the small farmers
Mhm.
would just be as beneficial for the large farmers. Cause you might need to learn about their business and who they sell to, you know, fully get the big picture, instead of having these separate questions for different types of farmers.
It's moreover to manage the scope of the individual meetings. Because, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it would seem to me that the small farmers, like you said, what they sell to
Mhm.
would be different than what the large farmers sell to. You know, and we need both. That's,
Yeah.
you know, we need to know both, but we don't, it would start getting confusing if you have a small farmer and then a large farmer talking about, you know, he exports, you know, 15 truckloads of hay or whatever, and the little guy, you know, he sells, you know, 15 bottles of honey. I think we might start getting confused, and that's what we're trying to eliminate. is-
But that first question,
I understand.
what Lindsay said, that does seem like a question that you could ask.
Oh, I would
Anybody
expect
that
all the
sells
questions, but
product.
everybody.
Well, which,
So that's 2AA. To whom do you sell your product? Neighbors, stores, others?
Cause even if you're classifying them as big based on acreage or what you know of them,
Mhm.
they all do small sales. But, you know what I mean? They're not just doing these big customers, you're thinking they're running truckloads out, they're doing people that come for like one bale of hay, or people that
Okay.
come for, you know, 6 ears of corn. So they're hitting small too.
okay. Well, one thing that I was trying to do with these questions, okay, so we're sort of going to the next thing. The universal question, it's always, my experience is it's always good to have some universal questions in there, because that way, these are questions where we look for some commonality. You know, it's sort of the big picture, 30,000 square foot sort of thing. To see if you can find any consensus across the community. So that's always helpful. And then the specific questions, as you can tell, are a little bit more geared towards the groups. And, you know, like I said, I'm all in favor of, you know, modifying these and whatnot. But for instance, that question that you're talking about with who do you sell to, you know, I'm thinking of the feed farmers. I mean, I see your point, Lindsay, you know, they might sell a couple ears of corn, but the feed farmers are going to be very different than, you know, the very small farmer that just has the cooler at the end of the driveway selling eggs. And their needs are going to be different. And, you know, the idea is to get people who are of like mind together so that we can find out what the common problems are in that group.
Yeah, to contain the scope of the meeting,
Right,
so we, you know, so we don't start jumping around between dealing with the people with the little farm stand
right,
versus the people that have a big production plus the little farm stand,
right,
you
right,
know, that sort of thing.
yeah,
Because they're gonna be more focused on the big, I would think they're more focused on the big production,
yeah,
that's probably most of their income,
yeah.
at least that's how I think.
Yeah, and it's not that we're trying to ignore or not get information from people. We will take all this information and assimilate it. But it's, you know, how do you get the best quality of information? And that's by making sure that your groups are as homogeneous as possible without too much variety. So we can ask the same question to more
Oh, absolutely.
to more groups. The problem then becomes you're asking too many questions. And, you know, my experience is after 5 or 6, people start to fade off. The other thing is, these are really just a guide. Because again, what I've found is sometimes you start these discussions with these questions, and then people start talking to you about other stuff that you never thought of. And I never shut them up, because if they're doing that, they're talking about the stuff that matters to them. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pull information out of them. So I'd much rather have what they want to tell us than necessarily, if we skip half the questions, that's fine. At least they told us what they wanted us to know.
They are the subject experts.
Right, right. So,
Me, I'm just a retired consultant.
all right. Okay, so let's finish this up. So, Angelo, it sounds like you can do some work to help us refine this list at
Yeah.
least. But we need to see your list and the weighted numbers, and then have another discussion. Okay, so I will send you the inventory.
This
Um,
big Excel file.
Yes. I'll send you that, and you can work your magic.
Okay. Are the assessment forms, are they only in paper in a filing cabinet?
I
Mhm.
believe so. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I don't know how to use a filing cabinet.
yeah. So what information do you need from them?
I was thinking about the actual farmers.
Their addresses?
Yeah, the addresses.
Their addresses?
Do you have the block and lot on there?
Well, the block
Well,
and lot
for
is
the
the
owner.
property, but not the actual farmer.
Well, if you look under the tax records, the owner will be there. And you
No,
can-
we have that.
The
He
farmer.
wants to know if the farmer is a resident or not.
This has just some pieces of
It
information.
has some name of a
It's
person
just a
who
name.
may or may not live in East Amwell.
It might be few enough that Lindsay's gonna know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we actually have to use we have to be able to go back to the real data. You know, even though Lindsay's probably correct and her husband's probably
Right.
correct, we have to be able to know that it's
Right.
what's on the form.
But that
Right.
is on the form,
It
isn't
is,
it?
Yeah.
it
So
probably
if
is,
there's only
and we
10,
can, yeah,
Well, if it's on the tenth, yeah, I don't know how many there are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at 300.
yeah. I can, tax season is crazy right now, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh.
I can't ask Miriam for any help right now.
Ooh, thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
So behind on everything.
Based on
Well,
the
we haven't
bills
got a
haven't
tax-
No,
come out yet?
taxes aren't out yet.
We haven't got a tax bill out. They've extended
Oh,
it. So
they did.
they-
Gets
they
till
didn't
the
do
27th.
The budget
Oh, wow.
was all.
Until the 27th of
Yeah.
September.
Yeah, I guess the
August?
state, the provider of the paper never got it to the state
Really?
or something. Yeah, it was like the first time in ever.
I go to
So
the
now
town.
everything's behind.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Even our software people didn't even update their tax system yet.
Yeah, I went to write the check today and it's like, oh, where's my tax bill? Oh, it never came.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, nobody has it.
Yeah, they're not that many.
Okay, well, that's fine. If there's only a handful of them, that makes it easy.
Then we
I
can
mean,
look it up.
a generous handful, but.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you,
Maybe we can send you a
when you
list.
start your list,
yeah.
you're gonna see that you might have a lot of forms to look through, but your entries will be minimal,
Mhm.
because multiple, like farmers, I think kids has maybe 15 properties in town, I don't even know. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I
you see his
understand.
name, and it
Yeah,
would
it's
be
like,
a small
Does
list.
he fill
I
out
don't
all
know
those
about,
for each of those
yeah, right here,
properties?
Jeff Val,
Colby?
yeah, I can't read sideways, but his name's three times in a row.
Yeah, no,
here.
I just skimmed down it,
Yeah,
there's,
so there's
there's not,
probably,
that- I'd say 20 tops.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right,
that's a piece of cake.
right.
And that's something I can pull for you guys.
Okay, yeah, oh, that'd be
I can
great.
go pull the things.
So if Angelo can give us the list of farmers, then
Right,
We-
and it's
we can
the
just
farmers
get the
that don't
addresses for them.
match the property owners.
Right,
Because if we have the property owner, then we have the lot and block, and
yeah,
I assume we have an address, location, yeah, 30 Amwell Road,
yeah.
so, in some cases. we have
Well, that's the
address.
address of the farm.
Right, that's the address of the property,
Yeah, right.
but,
Well, he's talking about the ones that match.
Right.
so like if, Nicholas and Robert, Lizowitz, okay, if they're in this list of farmers,
Yeah.
I already know their address.
That's right, that's right, okay.
So farmer 0, the value 0
Uh-huh.
is owned by the same person, so you can just filter by 0 and that eliminates probably half of them.
There you go.
Yeah,
So,
well, there's a lot you can, I think you can eliminate the woodlot ones too. There's, you can see on this map, a lot of them are in the Sourlands.
Right, where's the line for woodlots? Or does it say woodlot?
Yeah, it's. I'll zoom in this.
I don't see it. I guess if these are all 0, then you can assume that it's
Then it's
forest
woodlot.
management program.
Yeah, well, I figure a farm down, where's my street?
Well, first of all, these are all in the mountain zone, but I guess there are a couple farms in the mountain zone.
But like, I assume that this is the mountain zone, because I live over here.
Right,
So, someplace around here is where the mountain starts, I think actually, probably around here. So, this farm here, near the end of Rileyville Road, I could use these farms as, I try to identify mountains, and then I'll send you what I think. And you can tell me how stupid I am.
Wait a second, here, the W, I think, is woodlot. See this?
W versus L, or?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
I believe that's,
Cops or livestock.
And Tam, we don't need them because,
well, it's just a wooded lot, they're not really.
Where's
Oh.
South?
I mean, the woodlots say that they have to harvest a certain number of trees and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't, that's not really the farming that we're talking about. We're talking about, you know, the farms that make this so pretty. So, I mean, that was my rationale. But yeah, this is, the W is,
Okay, well, I can double check that on the map,
yeah.
because this W becomes South Hill, I don't know where that street is.
South Hill is off of Lindbergh. That's by me. And I'm on the mountain, definitely on the mountain.
Okay, so you're Lindbergh toward Hopewell.
Yeah.
Okay. There's your next block over. So I'm on Rileyville.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm down closer to Wurtsville.
okay,
I'm about 6 houses up.
okay.
you're my neighbor,
Where?
saddle shop.
Oh, you're on the corner. Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, that'll be helpful. So, let's just put a pin in the invitee list until Angelo does his magic, which is Great. the W. This is,
This column.
yeah, this column,
Crops or livestock in here?
yeah.
Okay. Farm, okay. Oh, we got W's in that column too, or is that the same column?
It's the same column, because I was
That's fine.
splicing it together and I didn't want to get it wrong.
No, I was looking at it, I go, gee, that's the same column twice.
It
I haven't
is,
seen that in a while.
that, I just didn't want to. All right, so then, do you want to go through the questions? I mean, the first question is really the focus of the whole project. So, I mean, we think this is important to keep farming economically viable. It'd be nice to hear it from more people, I thought. Make sure everybody else thinks that's important.
I like getting fresh corn around the corner.
There you go. It'd be interesting to see if we get any no's on that.
If you get too many no's, that would just definitely make my think about selling my house more important. 'Cause I like it here.
I don't know, what do you guys think about these other questions? What do you think about what are the biggest obstacles to making a good living? It would be interesting to see if, but in my thinking, it would be interesting to see if we get a different answer depending on how big the farm is.
And here's just a question about the sessions. So if the answer to question 2 is taxes,
Yeah.
of which we have no control
No control
over,
over.
what do we say?
We make note of that. We make note of that. And then just try to say, okay, and is there anything beyond taxes?
Okay.
To see if, you know, if they mention something that we do have control over.
Okay,
But, yeah, we're gonna hear that a lot.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, there's gonna be lots of things we have no control over.
Right.
And we just have to point out, you know, we can't control that. Let's focus on the things we actually have, we can affect, or let's try to affect.
Yeah. Or just take note of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And, because sometimes if you say there's nothing we can do about it, then people think, oh, you're just dismissing them, and we're not dismissing them, we
you
just
have to say-
recognize reality.
You have to, you're right, you have to point out that, yes, we understand that's an issue, but that is out of our purview,
Right, right,
you know, and we will bring it up to, you know, the town council.
powers that be,
The town committee.
right, right,
well, and a lot of times it's not even.
not even in
Town
there,
ca- it's not
their
town
issue
issue.
either, yeah.
Most of the taxes are
It's the schools, it's the schools, right.
Most of the taxes are at schools.
Would this, sorry, can
Go
I
ahead,
ask a
yes.
question? Would this possibly be a better question for, the farmers as opposed to a universal question? And I say that because if it's a universal question, we're asking, what's the obstacle to making a good living at farming? The landowner isn't making a living at farming. So would they really know how to answer that? I mean, they can say, what they think, like, oh, there's too many farms, or, you know, they're not growing what I wanna eat here. But it might be a biased question for people not working to make a living, potentially.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll save that one just for the farmers. That's a good point. All right.
You're trying to get at, do you like the idea of keeping farmland around you? Right, isn't that kind of
It-
what that's also asking?
She means this one.
Yeah,
Oh, biggest
number two.
Question, yeah, the biggest
Yeah, your-
obstacle.
Yours is more like number 3.
Well, yeah, the pros and cons of, well, I think this is gonna be interesting for, to hear what residents say and what
Mhm.
farmers say, because I think we're gonna get two different things. You know, I mean, people who aren't farmers, I've heard people complain about, you know, getting stuck behind tractors. I think it's cool, it's just a reminder that I live in a farming community.
Wait a little while and you pass it up.
Yeah,
It's like getting stuck behind a bicycle.
yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but,
I have more common bicycles, so.
I only get concerned when I'm coming up the little skinny road and there's a combine coming at me, and I'm not sure what to do.
They come in packs of
You should
20.
be driving a horse trailer when that happens. That's really scary.
yeah. Yeah, okay, so is everyone okay with, the third question? Which is, you know, the pros and cons of having a mixed community?
I think that's a fair question for everybody.
So that's a fair one, okay, so, and,
What's a CSA?
community-supported agriculture,
Okay.
farm share. Now, I say coordinated by the township, because, I mean, that was, this is because, you know, we've been talking about a local farmer's market. And I've heard from some, you know, we have farmers markets, but they're not always easy to get into, especially for the little guys. So we've been kicking around the idea of having one that's supported by the township. Actually, Parks and Rec committee is talking about having a pop-up farmers market, just to see what kind of, you know, reaction it gets, and, you know, how many farmers want to participate and whatnot. So, you know, the idea of having the idea of this question is to see if people are interested in a local farmers market. And if it was sort of organized by the town, then any local farmer would be able to come in, and they wouldn't necessarily be shut out. We still have to figure out if this is feasible and all that, but the idea of this question is just to see if there's interest in that. Is there any value to that?
I think so.
Okay, all right, so questions 1, 3, and 4 are the universal questions.
And then 2 would go to both small and large farmers.
Right,
Right, because the landowners, as Lindsay pointed out, and the residents.
Right.
right. What about horse farmers? That's a separate group.
I mean, I think it's a
They're
valid
making a
question
living
for them,
for-
for,
okay.
I mean, for, you know,
Okay,
boarding farms.
okay. Okay, so for the landowners, I thought this idea of maybe subletting underutilized buildings might be worth asking, because they may not wanna do that. Or, on the other hand, this could be another way to generate income.
Does that affect their assessment? Because if they sublet a barn and it's no longer a barn.
Well, what we've heard is they're annoyed that they're being assessed on underutilized buildings, and they're paying taxes on it. So the idea is let them sublet it. If they're gonna pay taxes on it anyway, let them get some income from it.
Right, but would it change the way the farm land is assessed and taxed?
Buildings aren't. You pay a lot in buildings.
So building doesn't matter,
No, it's just the property.
okay.
You can put anything in the
But they,
building.
actually, they were complaining us that they were complaining at meeting, this was Bill Dufusay that was complaining about this, that he's being taxed on buildings that he's not using.
Yeah, because
No, what he's saying is
they're
they
not
don't-
taking that into account for agriculture.
Buildings are taxed the same rate whether they're farm or not farm, is what he's saying.
Okay.
Yeah, so using it or not, I mean, it's like a
Okay,
house
so-
if you're not
Oh,
living
I
in one of
see.
your rooms.
My question is
It's a
moot
tax.
because it's not the way it works. I didn't know.
Okay.
Wait, so if you have a outbuilding on your property, It's taxed at the same rate as your house?
Well, depends. When you say outbuilding, is that like a run-in shed or is
Well,
it
no, like a
like a barn?
unused barn.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly.
It
what
depends on the
It's not the same
structure.
as a house,
Is
but
it accessory structure?
It depends on the structure,
yeah.
the size, and it's tax assessed.
But for instance, if I had a steel building that's used as a barn to store hay, and I had a steel building that's used as a barn to store priceless cars, they would be taxed at the same rate, is what
Yes.
we say.
Correct.
Got it. But not at the same rate as the house.
Right, the house is
Right.
different.
No, the house would be,
Primary.
Pools are
Yeah.
different.
Got
Yeah.
it, got it, got it.
They actually, I think, separate out.
everything's
Yeah,
separate.
right. around the house.
Right, I got it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I got it.
I think there might have also been comments regarding, okay, maybe some buildings are underutilized, but some may just be so worn down that
Mhm.
they can't be, utilized.
Right,
Or it would be like a hazard, so they're just kind of sitting there crumbling, I think.
yeah.
But yeah, doesn't really impact the question, just.
Well, actually, it does,
Something like
because if they could sublet it, maybe they would fix
But
it
you
up
can't use
to
it.
make it habitable.
She's saying the building is unusable.
Well, no, if you
Right,
fixed it
but
up.
if they knew they could use it, they might fix it up.
Mm.
They might improve it and not let it deteriorate more.
Maybe, yeah.
So,
Are they not allowed to sublet unusable buildings?
currently, our ordinance wouldn't allow it, particularly, I'm thinking, I mean, we would have to talk as a planning board how we would do it, but, the idea is you don't want a really intense commercial use there, because now you're changing the whole character of the neighborhood. But if they're going to, sublet it, I don't know,
Photo shoots.
yeah, or, an accountant who doesn't see clients necessarily, there are different things that there's a lot of internet businesses now,
Mhm.
and they just need space. So they don't generate a whole lot of traffic, you wouldn't even know they're there. It can be, an ordinance could be crafted to
Right.
work. And
Some
if,
people put, I work for a utility
yeah,
in New York,
mhm,
but I work in like Westchester, I work in somewhat similar areas, and some of the spaces that they use the, unutilized buildings, they
Yeah.
put batteries in them.
interesting,
So what that does is it stores energy
yeah,
during the day, you got your utility pole here, and then during peak hours, it'll just discharge back into the system. So it collects during non-peak hours,
uh-huh,
and it's also a way for, depends on, I don't know how the, land is allowed to be used here
Yeah.
or what they could do, but the farm, whoever owns that property, they're just collecting money from, they're just basically collecting rent.
For the
Unless
batteries.
they have the money to build that themselves, but,
yeah,
there's companies that come out that look for spaces like that.
that certainly doesn't
And just-
generate traffic,
Well, it doesn't generate any traffic, it's just supporting your system,
yeah,
and people,
yeah,
it prevents blackouts and stuff like that,
Right.
all that good stuff.
Is there an ordinance for solar panels and stuff on barns and stuff? No, right, just a regular one? There's nothing specific to.
we think we passed an ordinance recently that said no big solar fields.
Solar fields,
Right,
but this can
But you
go
can put them
top
on a
of
barn, you can put them on
structures.
roof
Yeah.
structures.
yeah, I mean, we've had some applications.
Yeah.
You'll get somebody, I call them developers, people
Mhm.
that do this stuff, they'll like, oh, I wanna put this up there, I'm gonna fix up that building and make it look nice, whatever it takes to
Yeah,
get the job done, they'll pretty much
fix up the
be at your
building,
beck, what do you want me to do, and I'll do it.
yeah,
They do stuff like that, cause they wanna, cause even if they're getting, I don't know how New Jersey really works, but in New York State, somebody can put solar panels on so many buildings,
yeah,
and they collect,
right,
just collect all the credits.
right, right,
And so they might make make it look pretty,
yeah.
just an idea, that's.
Are there any risks to the batteries, whether it be the batteries leaking or fire problems? or-
No, cause then there's all these, there's a lot of like state and federal codes they have to follow
Okay,
before they get it,
okay. Alright. Yeah, so there's probably a couple things people could do with these
I don't know
underutilized
if I don't know,
buildings.
of course, there, but just an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that was one question, I don't know what you guys think about that. The next one was about agritourism. Excuse me. And I'd like to get people talking about different forms of agritourism, because there's everything from, you know, pick your own farm, you know, pick your own whatever, to weddings, which a lot of people don't like, you know. The neighbors are not going to like that, depending on how big the farm is. If you've got a really big farm and they don't even know you're there, that's one thing. But, you know, if you've got a 50-acre farm, your neighbors are gonna know that you're throwing a wedding. So, you know, I think we have to start talking about it. I think it, you know, some people say absolutely no agritourism. It's a blanket statement when you have so many different kinds of agritourism. And I've talked with some farmers who said they absolutely want agritourism because they want people to know where their food comes from. They think that's, you know, a thing that has to happen.
It doesn't like magically appear in the supermarket.
Yeah.
It just came out of the freezer.
So right now, that's
All
not, that's
packaged.
not allowed at all right now? They don't do it at all right now? No weddings or anything?
So the.
It's allowed in, yeah,
Well, the vineyard has.
the
ways.
vineyards
The
certainly
state
have
has
it.
some type of management practices for that. I think they're,
Right,
like on preserved land specifically,
Mhm.
they're allowed to have a certain amount of events.
Unionville does it. I'm down the block from that.
yeah, Unionville does it,
Yeah.
right,
All of them. I mean, like, to me, all I see is the drop off the equipment.
yeah, yeah. And, you know, we do have the Right to Farm Act, and there's certain things you can do under the Right to
Okay.
Farm Act, but,
Fall at a good time.
yeah, that's right. That's right. But it would be, I think we have to have the conversation within the community, because people just throw out the word and,
Well,
you know,
it's also,
everybody
it's an
says something.
educational opportunity because
right,
you're in a group and you're hearing different people's version of agritourism, and then you realize it's a bigger umbrella than just,
right.
you know, party buses, people coming in, you know, there are lots of ways to do it.
Exactly, exactly.
I think a lot of people would love to do agritourism here. I think where people kind of stop and get halted is, you know, the liability and
Mhm.
getting sued when someone's on your property and just, you know, you have to shell out a lot of money to
Mhm.
let people onto your property if you're doing it the right way.
Right,
And, you know, people just starting out or some farmers just can't put that money in that spot, you know?
right, right.
So,
And you and I had talked about maybe we could, the town can give people some guidance on that.
yeah, like a hold harmless or
Down.
something, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but, yeah, I mean,
Well, and that question would probably elicit
that
that.
sort of comment.
Yeah.
that- Yeah, so we could get data about that.
Mhm.
Right. The next question, I mean, I know that there are residents who love living next to farms when there's nice, beautiful fields, but you start putting up, you know, greenhouses or, you know, vertical farms or something, or hoop houses. They're a little less enamored of those things, so.
Mike knows all about it.
So, you know, I think it's good to find out how people feel about that, and, I mean, it'd be interesting particularly to talk to landowners about it, because, I imagine the farmers who farm, they have to get the permission of the landowner if they're leasing the property to put up something like that. Otherwise, they might not be leasing it next year, right? I mean, if the landowner doesn't like looking at a hoop house,
I don't know that many farmers that put up hoops not on their property, I'll put it that way.
right?
I know them
It's a big investment.
farming, yeah, farming and taking the crop back to their farm and putting it in their hoop, but I don't know too many people that say, hey, I'm gonna put a hoop building on your.
On leased property.
Yeah,
A hoop building is that semicircle that's basically covered in plastic,
Yeah,
like on,
like temporary storage.
like on 202 up,
Profeta Farms, yep.
yeah, exactly. Thank
Yeah.
you.
What was previously known as Profeta
Right,
Farms.
with Val, something else.
With the purple lights for whatever they did.
They did tomatoes, so that extended ground
Okay.
and everything.
I just thought it was interesting driving down the road, see purple lights.
well, what do you guys think about these three questions for landowners? Are there other questions we should be asking instead, or what are your thoughts?
Anything about housing there? Is that kind of the universal thing?
For the-
That's fine.
For the land, what do you mean?
So landowners who work with farmers, so say someone leases some farmland and they wanna lease out like a bedroom or something, is there anything like that?
Lease out a bedroom.
To like farm help?
Yeah, but like, if you're a farmer who works with other farmers, right, so you're,
Well, this would be just for landowners.
so landowners who rent out who lease their land.
lease their
right?
land, right.
So,
So would they
would
allow?
they also want to house people, or are there any regulations for that? Are there?
I think you're allowed,
Yeah, if you have a farm, you can have
yeah, but you
farm
can't
housing.
collect rent, I don't believe. I think you
Farmhand.
can house them.
Yeah, I believe you can.
Like, you can have farm housing.
But do you think that would be good to ask if they would be willing?
I'm just
Because you had
curious.
brought up the issue
I'm just,
that,
it's impossible to find labor now, and we're looking at H2N1s right now, and I think that's one of the ways to get a lot of labor in here, and they need housing.
if they, okay,
So
What's H2?
it's the getting the visas for people from, say, like Ecuador or another country to come up seasonally, so they come for like, basically February to November or whatever it is, and then, you know, they're paid, there's subsidies to it.
They need a place to live.
They need a place, yeah, and a lot of these guys don't come unless they have that
Yeah.
set.
okay, so how do you feel about, how do they feel about on-site labor housing? Something like that, something to that, we could probably word it better.
I mean, where, is there any, like, have you found any?
Labor?
Housing,
No,
labor
housing.
housing.
Like,
No,
No,
actually,
no, I haven't looked, I mean,
Oh.
I just, yeah, just curious about it.
I
Well,
think there's
I
a
do
couple
try to-
properties.
Yeah, there are, the Greeks have, there's a farm on Lindbergh that has, they actually have 2 mailboxes.
It's like a separate structure.
Yeah, it's a separate,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cause I think there's I know one property, I don't recall where it is, they have a separate outbuilding that is just for,
Ju- yeah,
yeah,
it's a
Seasonal
separate
house.
house, yeah.
separate housing, yeah.
It's perfect.
What
I,
about some,
I know some people are doing, if they have like a vacant house, kind of like a property maintenance person who gets the
Mhm.
benefit of the house and maintains the grounds, but I haven't seen that like with the farming too much, more of property management.
Yeah, but do you think it might make it easier to attract labor if the housing was available, which is what Mike suggested?
I mean, in East Amwell, from what I see, it's a lot of like larger farmers with equipment doing the kind of work. I mean, unless we have like a huge population of like, vegetable farmers that are doing a lot of hand picking, I don't know how many people use those type of employees.
Well,
But-
then it would be good to
It'd
find
be-
out,
Be
Yeah.
interesting to know
yeah,
what it is, I mean.
yeah. So there's actually 2 parts to that. One is to find out if the landowners would allow it, and the other is to maybe talk to the smaller farmers. I'm
Right, the
thinking
produce farmers, I think. are the
produce
ones.
farmers.
The produce
Yeah.
farmers.
And the
Yeah.
equine farmers, actually,
Really?
yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll add a question about housing to the small farmers and to the equine.
Now, the equine farmers include like the places that do boarding
Yeah.
for the horses?
I mean, under farmland assessment, that's the only, like, breeding, I don't think is, horse breeding is not, I think, farmland assessed.
Oh, really? That's odd.
I have no idea, that's not.
yeah, I think there's a certain amount of acreage of pasture required,
Right.
something like that. I remember reading once.
But like selling horses is not
Mhm.
a farmland
That's
assessed.
weird, 'cause that's-
Here, not everywhere, but in East Amwell,
Cause the,
don't ask me.
Sure. You can
Well,
breed cows, but you
it's
can't breed horses.
state, that's a state program,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's New
farmland assessment
Jersey.
is state.
So, but is it an acreage requirement?
It could be,
It's-
but
maybe it's
that's-
acreage requirement.
Farmland assessment is state, not township.
Right.
Yeah. The township doesn't make up the rules.
Well, but the number of acres for grazing is different in different,
That's a state program, that should be statewide.
that's interesting.
We can double check that.
I mean, we don't have an ordinance like how many horses you're allowed on your property.
Yeah.
Some towns do have ordinances allowing, like, you're only allowed like 1 horse for every acre, things like that.
Huh, I wonder if it's interpretation that's different.
So that's different from assessment.
Okay. We can check into that.
I mean, it doesn't affect this.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have to look at the next 3 sort of together, because we're not gonna do 3 groups anymore. So, well, Lindsay's suggesting that first question, you know, who do you sell to, would probably be good to ask both groups. So that would be small and large. Does everybody agree with that?
Seems like a good idea.
And what I've discovered in talking with particularly the smaller farmers is a lot of them want to switch from what they're doing now. I mean, they're farming, and they like, and a lot of these smaller farmers are also newer farmers. So they like what they're doing, but, or they enjoy farming, but they want to switch to something else. I was talking to one farmer, she really wanted to switch to lavender because she didn't think a whole lot of people were doing lavender, so she wanted to switch, you know, but she didn't know how to do it.
So switch crops. but-
Switch crops, switch with it, yeah. And I think that's probably more common, Lindsay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, with smaller farmers than larger farmers, because larger farmers seem to be they've been doing it for a long time.
I think it applies to both,
Okay.
because I think this question might prompt people to say, I wanna grow alfalfa, but the deer. I mean, a lot of
Interesting.
people here have to farm certain crops to make a living, and the deer are hindering that, so they've kind of morphed their business to accommodate what survives.
Okay,
There's also hemp, that's a big thing now, and you can do that on really large farms, so.
okay,
There's what?
Hemp,
Oh, hemp.
yeah, the state, that's a lot more valuable, well, there's a whole bunch going into
Yeah,
that.
I understand.
The good thing is the processing and the harvesting is, it's cross prohibitive unless you have thousands of acres, but some people do here.
okay, so the first two questions would be to both small and large.
So why couldn't the lady switch to lavender? I was just planting
She didn't know
something
how.
different. Oh,
Acknowledge.
I can plant her an
Yeah.
entire field of
Yeah.
lavender for her. That's the sort of stuff I wanna do for people.
She just needs Mike's name.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
And the agritourism, see if people are interested in that.
Yeah, you have that in both.
Well, have that in the landowners,
And both farmers.
and we have that in the farm, so we're asking everybody about that, okay.
My girlfriend has commented that she would like to go visit like the alpaca farm, just
Yeah.
to see how it works,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. So I was actually gonna reach out to, it's like Candle something on Manners.
Mm-hmm. Right,
So I was gonna reach out to them and see if they actually have some sort of tour thing.
yeah. And assuming that a lot of the small farmers are starting out, not all of them, but a lot of them, have that question in there about business plans. You think it's really good for them to have business plans?
Sure, yeah, you need, if you're gonna
Everybody
farm
needs a
successfully, you
business
need a
plan.
plan, otherwise.
Yeah, and I don't know that all of them have a business plan. And if we know that they think it's a good thing, we might be able to plan for it. I mean, there's this whole idea of we need a farmer's advocate to sort of help farmers.
Now, you
provide
asked that, I provide an example of one.
Yeah,
Do you have an idea of something that would be good? Because I have lots of different plans, but what's gonna
well, if you could
resonate
just
with people?
describe what you described to me.
Would it make sense to say something like, if it was available, would you be interested in guidance on a business plan? Just because I
Yeah.
wonder if you say, do you
I
have a
agree.
business
Yeah.
plan?
The tone comes off a little,
Yeah.
Okay,
you know,
Why don't you have a business
attacking,
plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you'd
Okay.
feel I'd feel bad, like, no, I don't have one.
like a little invasive, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that's a really good point.
okay.
Or even, you know, I think even, Mike, if you're gonna kind of help share your business plan, you know, would you benefit from one, be interested in, you know, getting guidance, or, you know, whatever you wanna do, if you wanna coach on that.
Guess I'll do like a cut flower farm.
I mean, I think we're probably gonna have to, since we're cutting this down to two groups, cut out some of these, questions. You know, maybe the one on marketing in the next group probably isn't as effective or as useful as, some of the others. Although, you know, this farm plan that we're doing, this interactive farm plan we're trying to help farmers with their marketing.
Well, that would come back under helping them build a business plan,
Okay,
so they can figure out how much time they're gonna have to spend
right,
Big
Not-
follow-up to that.
not playing with the dirt.
right. Right. Okay,
Would you benefit from assistance in marketing?
yeah, okay, so we could say business plan and or
then
marketing.
It's all sorts of stuff you don't think about.
Yeah. All right, and the agritourism one we already have in the other group.
Right. We already
Yeah.
talked about hoops.
Yeah, but we did that with the landowners, and, you know, it'd be interesting to find out if farmers wanna use them. I mean, if landowners don't want them and farmers don't wanna use them, then we don't have to make
Yes.
a big deal about it.
What's
Um,
vertical farming?
It's like in an enclosed building when they're growing with lights,
Oh, okay.
multiple levels, so
Okay.
they're going very vertical, small footprint, but
I was thinking like pole beans.
So would this be to both small and medium? Or small and large?
It would seem that we have a problem with vertical farming because we have a height limit in the ordinances in town. It's like 30 feet or something.
Right, but if they need it, then we can always change the ordinance. We're just looking for what should the policy be now? I mean, if our master plan
Mhm.
suggests different policies, then the next step is to go to the ordinance and
Okay. I
make it
understand.
reflect the policy. Okay, and I don't know if there's all that much value to the first question, whether they're monocultural, cultural, or diverse. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I'm just trying to,
I'm not sure why it matters.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I mean, either they plant all corn or they plant corn and other
Right.
things which I don't know what they are.
right, right, right. Now, the value-added processing, is that, I'm assuming you have to be a certain size before that it's worth investing in that.
For value added?
Yeah, or can small.
Yeah, you can, actually, the smaller farmers typically the ones who do the value added. So a guy grows hot peppers and makes hot pepper sauce in 50 jars.
Right,
So he's adding a lot of value to his crop
right.
with, very little work.
So it could be big or
Not
small.
work. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
it's not a size thing there.
What are we trying to understand from that question? By chance?
If farmers want to do value-added processes on their farms, so that if they do, we want to have an ordinance that makes it easy for them to do that.
Right now, you need a commercial kitchen to do anything like that. New Jersey did just pass a law, I think, last week allowing you to do,
Yeah,
like, you can bake stuff at home and sell it now, but I don't think it works for canned goods and things like that, but it might. So we're thinking, if we can do something where we're allowed to do that on a small septic, then maybe it makes sense.
Yeah.
Or have a place downtown where you can use the kitchen, like the firehouse or the church or something like that, but maybe something else.
Right.
can we possibly get more detailed with this question or go at it differently? And the only reason I say that is for the people who aren't making food crops. If you present this question to a hay farmer or grain farmer, they would probably be like, what are you talking about? I already am using a combine, I'm already using an automated stacking, it might come off and they're not understanding
Mm-hmm.
if we don't get a little bit more specific.
Well, they might say,
Post-harvest value added, I guess it's the same thing.
Is it
Well,
exclusively for food stuff versus, I forgot what the other term was.
Well,
Crop, not crop,
Sometimes you
well, I mean, dairy farmers can make ice cream. That's value-added.
can food,
But that's food again.
Are
So
you
the
talking
dairy
about
farmers
food
know.
processing?
It usually is. I'm trying to think, I don't know, I don't know enough
Because
about it.
would you just add the word food? Or,
I don't,
that's a good point. Have you ever considered value adding processing of food crops?
okay.
yeah.
That makes more sense, yeah.
What was the other term, the other kind of crops?
Well,
Feed.
hey, what are you gonna do to
Yeah.
value add your hay?
Hay.
No, but what was the word you used for hay crop, like hay and
I think I just said hay, grain, field crop.
field, feed?
What, field crop, well,
I think you
Field
said
crop.
feed, maybe.
I might have said feed crop.
You said feed.
I just think a portion of the farmers are gonna see this question and not understand
No, you're right.
without the word food,
Yeah.
Okay,
so.
okay. We've got the agritourism question there. And here, do all farmers use farm labor, even small ones?
I would if I could,
You would if you could.
yeah, I would just do more of the same what I'm doing.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like the questions for the small and large are the same questions. I still think we should have two separate groups because we may get different answers. But,
I think the direction that they would come from would be different.
right.
Well, the business plans are very different.
Well, yeah.
It definitely makes sense to have two.
Right. So I'm coming up with 1, 2, 3, we've got a few more questions. I've got 6 questions here for those groups. And we can put them all on there, and that's in addition to the 3, so we're up to 9 questions. That's kind of pushing it, but we can see how it works. So I've got 2A, B, and C. I'm sorry, 2A, A, B, and C, 2B, number D, and 2C, A, and C. So that's 6 questions in that.
I think some of those questions they're gonna fly right through it. Some
Okay,
are gonna be
so
like-
it's okay.
Yeah, some are gonna be more discussion, some are like, no, it's that, no interest.
Right, okay. All right, so then we have the horse farmers. Marnie, I need your help on this.
I think, also I misspoke about breeding. Breeding is a farmland assessed activity.
Okay,
I think the biggest issues related to farm labor is a relevant question for,
everybody.
yeah, for
Yeah.
farm, equine farms.
Oh, for equine as
Yeah,
well?
that's
Okay.
a struggle right now.
Okay.
Do we have farms in town that do other than board horses?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's.
Just looking at the first question, is, what services do you provide? If they all provide the same service, do we need to ask the question?
Well, some do training, some do
Okay.
breeding, some do.
That's what I was asking.
Some
Yeah.
do lessons, I mean, they do a lot more than just boarding, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
And some is related to farmland, some farmland
Grazing.
assessment and some is,
Yeah.
right, grazing.
right. And.
And agritourism questions would be relevant, I think.
Oh, okay,
Right, because,
right. Okay. And the reason I wanted to know about the changes, because from the people I've spoken to, it has changed. I mean, 20 years ago.
it's changed a lot.
Yeah, it was very different. And now, for instance, the trails that go through town are all broken up. And fewer people are riding in East End while they're going to other towns, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, the same liability issues that you were talking about.
Yeah, okay. All right, and then, so then the last group is residents who live around farms. And as I said, we still have to identify who they are, but Mike's map should help us pull together a group of people from that. Just simple pros and cons to living around farms. I think we'll get some interesting answers to that.
That will probably take up the whole time there.
Yes.
I really like the last question. The second part of it. How would you feel if, I'm wondering if we could like bump that up on the list.
Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to get some idea of how they feel about agritourism, because these are the people who are gonna have to live next to that activity. And I'm sure if it becomes too commercial, they'll hear objections, so we kinda gotta find out where that line is.
Yeah, and also with D, when we go to Carly, what we hear back, we also need to find out where the people live in relationship to the farm. Okay, for example, me, where I live, the whole street is just houses. Behind me is a farm,
Right,
and then there's a couple more private properties, and then there's a big massive
yeah,
farm area.
right,
I mean, if that was sold and turned into, you know, big mansions or something, I probably wouldn't even notice,
mm-hmm,
because it's just too far away,
mm-hmm,
okay? But, you know, other places, like on Manners, okay, those farms are right up by the street, and then the few people that live there would notice,
mm-hmm.
you know, that sort of thing. So we need to correlate opinion with, you know, the person's perspective.
Well, I was thinking of, you know, identifying the farms, and then just identifying the people who live next to those farms. So these are the people who are gonna notice.
Right, but you can't not let people show up. Don't know, you know, and, you know, based on, I'm just thinking about, you know, caveats and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some people who live and they're surrounded by farms, and then you have where I live, which along Rileyville, it's all houses. There's a little farm behind me, it's like 20 acres. Then there's a couple private properties, then there's a big massive area of farms.
Mm-hmm,
But that's all accessed through a right-of-way road,
mm-hmm.
which is at the edge of my property, but, you know, every once in a while I see a truck going, but I
Yeah.
don't care.
Right, but if they were doing intense agritourism in there, and you saw more than just a truck every once in a while.
I got a big buffer of trees, I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. Some people might care.
Yeah, well, that's my point.
I mean, I know somebody who lives, you know, close to one of the vineyards and hates that he can't sit on his back deck
Right,
when
that's
there's a wedding.
exactly, that's
you
my
know,
point.
Without listening to somebody else's music, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Right,
You need to look at where the person lives.
Yeah,
You
make
know,
note
'cause
of
that might
that.
just be a curmudgeon.
But that question also goes to like someone like me who just loves Manners Road, and how sad would I be if Manners Road suddenly became like a housing development,
Yeah.
even though I don't live near it. I like,
But maybe that's something you look at after data collection.
Right.
Because you're gonna know who says the
Oh.
comment,
Mhm.
and then you can say, oh, well, they live here, so maybe that impacted their,
Yeah, exactly. It's
You
like
know.
your point with Manners, you don't want Manners to turn into barley sheaf.
Mhm.
and maybe it
They're
won't
urban.
even matter if all the comments are great and say, I love farms, I like living here, then you're good, but if you're getting people who want Toll Brothers,
Yeah.
then you might have to analyze that.
Right, right, exactly.
Agritourism, how do you say that, what's that word again?
Agritourism.
What if they asked that question with like, hey, how would you feel about it if it came with a plan? Like, to like, kinda say like, not just blindly do it, but if there was like a traffic plan and maybe they did it by appointment, so it wasn't all crazy, you know, everybody
Right.
coming all at once.
And like hour restrictions.
Yeah, hour restrictions, so like maybe if it was asked with like some, if you felt good about it, but if it was presented or done in a way that, you know, it'd be good for the community and, you know, the person running it too may not benefit them.
Right, right, and these questions, like I said, are just the starters. I
Just a
think this
starter, okay.
introduces the issue of agritourism, you get people to start talking about it, and then you investigate different types of agritourism. So if
Okay.
they say they don't want weddings, then yeah, you can say, well, what if it was limited number of weddings and, you know, no outdoor music, or, you know, see if there's any, I mean, you sort of have to take the temperature of the meeting,
Okay,
see how much discussion you can have.
just felt like if you have these focus groups and you ask them a question like that, and you said, no, you know, if there was no more discussion on it, and then everybody just said, all the residents said no, and all the
Yeah.
property owners said, yeah, they don't wanna do.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's one thing,
Yeah,
at these meetings, you never wanna ask yes/no questions.
Okay,
You want
wanna,
solicit.
yeah, how do you feel, describe what your concerns would be.
Okay.
You never ask yes/no questions, cause you don't
Okay.
get a conversation going.
okay.
Yeah.
except for that first one.
Well, right. Right, exactly. Yeah. Right. So, okay, but any other questions? Well, yeah, any other questions that you think we should ask the residents who live around?
Excuse me. Hello? Hi, what's up?
I mean, I don't know. think it's getting into the weeds if we start saying, what do you think about drones? Because then, you know, drones are gonna,
Yeah, can you ask them why a resident chooses to live here?
yeah.
They're asking why do you choose to run a farm, but, I mean.
Is
Is
it
it
better for the
like, is it any
schools?
more like, kind of like,
Make it a little more general.
yeah, make it more general, like maybe they can just say because of a farm, or like for me, example, I moved here because of, I love the farm, so that's where I wanted to live near.
Mm-hmm.
So, but maybe people live here for a commute for other reasons, and you may be able to get a little bit more data that way,
Yeah. Okay.
see what they're thinking.
Something like, you know, what are the main reasons that, or what are the main things that attracted you to this area
Right,
or something?
which gets to the master plan,
Yeah.
sort of part of this too. Like, what
And
is
then you
the
may get-
character?
Then you're gonna get people that, you know, been here for generations, and the house was passed down,
Yeah.
you can kinda categorize it.
Okay. Okay. All right, do we wanna meet with Ringo's or local businesses, or is that a little beyond the scope right now? We are,
Looks like we have a pretty full plate.
this
Yeah.
is a full plate, and Elena is really taking care of that. Okay, so I will write this up again. Yolanta, how much can this group decide on, what has to go to the board? Do we have to write up these questions, and then does the board have to approve it before we actually use them?
If the only thing that you're doing with these questions is having focus groups, which are small private conversations, and municipalities have conversations with developers every single day without having them go before, you know, anywhere. None of this is going to be memorialized in any type of a decision. All of this data is still being collected. At the end, when you're done collecting the data, then all of that has to go to the full planning board in order to have the full planning board look at it, digest it, and see what decision they're going to make based upon what you have learned.
Mhm.
So you're on a fact-finding mission
Okay.
at this point. So I don't, you know, as long as you are as long as you're working within these subcommittees, there's nothing that has to go to the full board. Now, the subcommittees, they've been authorized to exist, right?
We should probably
We should do
make
that.
it more formal.
We should do that.
Yes, make it more formal.
Yeah, we can make it more formal, although the chairman simply can choose people to be on subcommittees.
Well, and that's what the bylaws say. He
Right.
chooses them and the
Yeah.
board votes on it.
And
but
you know, the
let's make
beginning
it-
of the year,
Yeah.
so, or whenever he needs to do that. So
Right.
we should do that at the next meeting and say, look, this is official, this is our subcommittee, these are the people that are working to get out there on their fact-finding mission, and when they bring everything back, we're gonna have public hearings. Anyone in the township is going to be able to come in to listen to everything that's happened, and to comment. So people are going to have ample opportunity to come back and comment, and the board is going to have ample opportunity to
Yeah.
review everything that you bring to them. And you're not filtering anything, what you're doing is simply getting out there, grabbing the information and bringing it here.
Right,
So no decisions are being made right now by anyone.
right, okay, all right. So I'll revise these, I'll run it by everybody, you know, make your comments and whatnot. Does anybody have any objections if I run it by Lindsay as well? Lindsay, would you like to be included? But,
Sure,
Okay.
whatever you guys are comfortable with.
okay,
Think it would be
all right,
helpful.
I appreciate it. And then maybe at the next planning board meeting, we can just tell the planning board, these are our questions.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
these are the ones we're gonna use.
Yeah, that might be useful only if, you know, only for the simple fact that people will be watching and listening, and
Yeah.
they'll already have advance notice of what they're going to see, what they're going to hear.
Right,
And if anyone has any other suggestions, they might come to a planning board meeting and stand up during public comment and maybe opine, maybe give you more questions that,
Mhm.
you know, it's, opening it up, it's not bad.
yeah, okay, all right. Do we need another work session to go through the invitee list once Angelo does his analysis?
I don't
It's-
think I'm going to answer that question.
Because, I mean, we've gotta find that dividing line. I
Right.
think we have to sort of review it.
Okay.
Will it be in a form that you can send it to us, so we
Yes.
can sort of look at it in advance?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll have another work
It'll be an
session?
Excel file,
It'll be, so, okay.
or if you want, I can make it a report type file,
Whatever's easiest, what, you know.
just computer stuff.
Well, I don't have that same skill, so, okay,
The paper.
all right. Well, I think that would be great, and then, yeah, and then we once have that, and we have this, then what we have to do is, you know, reach out to the people on the invite list
Get them to go.
and get them to come, so maybe we divide that up.
Are the meetings here?
Yeah, I would imagine this is the easiest place, because they're central, so the meetings will be here. It would be great for you to help with the horse farm. I don't know, does anybody else have a preference of, you know, which group they might wanna meet with, or it might be, you know, when these people,
Doesn't matter to
Well,
me.
okay,
I don't have any vested stock in big farms, little farms, landowner, or a person.
probably be best to have you at a farmer's meeting, and, you know, wanna be, you know, you guys
A resident.
at the resident meeting or something, yeah. So, okay, but we can decide that, like, seems like we've got a little bit of time. All right, so I'll work on
And
this.
we'll probably end up, because we're gonna double up, right, so we'll probably end up doing 2 each, right?
Two,
Focus groups,
Because we're gonna do 2 people per group, right?
2 people per group.
and we have 4 groups.
We have
We have
5 here plus the, no, you're right, we have 5.
Right,
So
so. we can-
landowners, so, yes, some people will have to double up. But we've also got Tim and Natalie,
Oh, good.
yeah, so they're gonna be at the meetings.
So we'll set.
We'll have 7
Great.
to cover 5 meetings.
Yeah,
Right.
I personally would like a second.
yeah. I think we should,
I'm
have
not a great
seconds.
facilitator when it comes to meetings and public speaking, so.
Okay.
You're great, but it'd be good to have 2 at all of them,
Oh, yeah,
because
there
who
have
knows?
to, there have to be 2 people at every
Yeah.
meeting, absolutely has to be 2 people at
You
every
can
meeting.
talk about 10 minutes, 15 minutes,
Yeah,
and loosen up.
no, there has to be there has to be 2 people, and one person will probably take notes, and the other one will just facilitate. So, yeah, that'll be good, okay. All right, we got a lot
Great.
done, got more done than I thought we would. Thank you so much, I mean,
Wonderful.
you,
Nice job with this, Pam, that's impressive.
wow,
That
I
must have
I
taken
could-
hours.
could copy and splice, yeah,
Yeah, it's not easy.
so.
That is a lot of work,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot.
to put all this stuff. I've done this. It is, I probably get another giant.
Yeah, got staples.
Are you guys
Exactly.
good?
Get a piece of plotter.
Huh?
Are you guys good?
We're good,
Just
we're
do
good.
two.
Squad is okay.
Lindsay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
for letting me join you guys.
Oh.
No,